The Great Roman Empire was once a vast superpower stretching across large parts of what would be modern Europe and northern Africa. Known for their military might and intellectual society, the Romans were a powerful force that left a mark on history. However, looking between their conquests and supposed high society, the Roman Empire was tasked with properly governing a vast amount of land and people, many of which came with diverse and ever-changing problems, a task that the Romans could not as easily conquer. Roman bureaucracy showed varying levels of success throughout the empire, often failing to properly manage aspects of government, while at other times successfully keeping order at a surprisingly efficient rate. Some of the major weaknesses of Roman rule are more apparent today, especially when looking at it through a modern perspective. One of the first major weaknesses was the Roman Empire's lack of bureaucrats. For an empire of that size that covered such a vast amount of land, the amount of state bureaucrats was greatly lacking. This was due in part to the Romans' lack of centralized education. As such, requests from local populations would have a hard time reaching government officials, and even then they were often overburdened with work that fell on them from across the empire. The next and likely most prominent issue was the lack of reliable communication throughout the empire. Letters and messages were often received weeks, sometimes even months, after being sent from their original destination. This was largely attributed to the great distances that messengers had to physically travel, often combating with the land and weather conditions that would vary between seasons. While travel by sea was often faster, the conditions had to be optimal for boat travel, and harsh weather could hinder or stop the progress of messengers altogether. On the other hand, Roman bureaucracy still found its strengths in some areas. Archives and documents on a local level were often well organized and contained detailed information for the state to use. Tax collection was greatly assisted by these documents, and cross-checks were accessible to combat fraud among individuals with taxable land. It's here that it should be noted that while Roman rule had many issues along its line of government, this same system often found its mark in keeping the structure of the Roman Empire whole and making sure armies and officials were paid to keep the state going.